Centerport Presbyterian Church, which is built on the Osborne property. They originally met in the Osborne Meeting Hall before the original church was built. I think the second church may be here. We're going to try to find it, but Alexander, his wife Agnes, and their son Adlai are buried here, and we're going to try to find those graves. We're not there yet, because some of these graves are on up in the 1800s. And we're looking for the ones back in the 1700s. And it's a stone, something like that double humped one right there. We may have to go ask. Here we go, Bob. And there's Harriet. I'm going to take pictures of all these because these are all our relatives. Died in 1816. This is somebody. That's it right there.
Yeah.
He was 67, she was 63. She was a McWhorter.
So see how they did that like by hand?
Oh yeah. Dragged some stone out from somewhere. Well, it's got to be some of the early. This may be some of the first graves in here. I'm going to say this little corner is
1776.
That's right. And I was talking to somebody who thought, well, there was this lady in Chamber of Commerce in Tennessee. She says, seems like there was a smallpox epidemic in 1776. Because they didn't get to see July 4th, 76. They just days after Declaration of Independence.
Yeah. July the 11th.
And she died on the 9th. He was my age.
Mm-hmm.
Or I was his age. I am his age. So that's about how old he was. Now that was an old man in those days.
Is that Colonel
Yes,
Alexander
yeah,
Osborne?
Colonel Alexander Osborne. And his son Adlai was also a colonel. Here lie the remains of John Brevard Sr. John Brevard and Jane Brevard. Now see, they were cousins to the McWhorters, and Brevard, North Carolina is named after them. Yeah. And this Ephraim Brevard that town's named after, his Adlai's son was named Ephraim Brevard. He named his son grandson Ephraim Brevard, and I had an uncle, E.B., Ephraim Brevard, so that name has stayed up until my daddy's generation as one of the Osborne names.
So this guy died in 1790 or 75. He was 18. He was born in 1718. Is that about right?
what I'd like for you to do is kind of point this over there at me and let me go over and say a few words around these.
Yeah.
Just look right through here, and it's already running.
Oh,
You
okay.
can kind of see, that's all you have to look at. And I want to do something for YouTube. Folks, this is our Alexander Osborne. And how we're kin to him is Alexander's son, one of his sons was named Adlai. Adlai was the son of Ephraim Bavard, the physician that got to Texas in 1855. Ephraim Bavard's son was James Campbell, who was our grandmother Ballou's grandfather. He had a son named Ephraim Bavard that was Lily Pearl Osborne's daddy. And then Lily Pearl also named one of her children Ephraim Bavard. That was Uncle E.B. So we're back, how many generations? We're back, grandmother's granddaddy would have been my great-granddaddy. J.C. Osborne would have been my great-great-granddaddy. Ephraim Bavard that came to Texas was my great-great-great-granddaddy. Adlai Osborne, who is in here also, was my great-great-great-great. So this makes him my great-great-great-great-granddaddy. And he and his wife died within just a few days of each other in 1776. And we're finding a couple other Osbornes in here that are some of our relatives from this area. This land belonged to him, and this church was built on his property. Before the first church was built, they met in the Osborne Meeting House here on this property, the Presbyterian church. And then they built a church. They had an occasional circuit preacher. That church burned, and then they built another, and we're going to try to find that building. But this is as far back as I know that we can find Osbornes out of our Osborne line, and that's a long way back. He was born in like well, he was 67 years old, so he was born in 1709. And he died before he got to see the Declaration of Independence put into the... He was a colonel in the militia. He was a circuit court judge. He was on the board of recovery or board of safety board for whatever, for this Iredell area. And they came here back in the, I think 1755, something like that, if my records are right. And this is Colonel Adlai Osborne, his son. And Adlai was E.B.'s daddy, and then on down that list, like I thought, this says, and his wife, here lie the remains, Colonel Adlai Osborne, who, after life of virtue and devoted public and domestic usefulness, departed this life December 16th, A.D. 1814. in the 71st year of his age. So the Osbornes were long livers. And this is Margaret Osborne, the wife of Colonel Adlai Osborne. So she's a great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmama. Colonel Adlai, wife of Colonel Adlai Osborne, who departed this life on the 23rd of September 1830, aged servant
75.
Oh, age 75 years. And I'll bet this is another Osborne, right? Unless this is her same gravestone. But you know, I don't see any other Osbornes, and they should be buried right in here.
There's one more over there to the left.
Yeah, got her. This is, and John Bavard. The Bavards were a cousin to Agnes McWhirter, who was Alexander's wife. Bavards were also a very well-known family, after which the name of Bavard, North Carolina, is named after Ephraim Bavard. That's how we get Ephraim Bart Osborns. They were named after her cousin, so they must have been pretty close. That name lasted until my uncle E.B., who was the last Ephraim Bavard Osborn, or he was Ballou, but he was the only Ballou that was an E.B. So that name survived over a century and a half of that name being carried through to descendants of the Osborns. And this is pretty neat stuff. I almost feel like singing in fact, I'm going to give y'all a hymn that was not written. I don't think this hymn was written. I don't think the guy that wrote this had written it by the time you were in there. I wouldn't know what kind of songs y'all sing, those old English hymns, I guess. But I'm going to sing, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. And the other verse that would mean something, when we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. I happen to believe, since there's no time in heaven, when I get to heaven, these people are going to say, oh yeah, where you been? No, I just turned around and there you were. I thought, it's not like they've been up there waiting, because there's no time to wait. It's just that people just show up, and it's like you never were separated.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, folks, this is pretty neat.
It's neat. I'm glad to be a part of it.
This is well worth the miles and the few bucks that I spent to get over here.
Yeah.
Because not many of us have been here, I'm going to say.
That's right.
Well, anyhow,
fantastic.
that's good, Bob. Thank you. I'm going to take a few stills now.